Attention pro athletes. Want to secure your financial legacy and thrive off the field? Oakbridge Wealth Management, led by wealth manager Chris Anicetti, is your dedicated financial planning ally. But don't take it from me. Take it from the Dallas Cowboys' Tyler Biadasz. He says, Chris set goals financially and has been incredibly impactful in my journey in the NFL. Experience our customized, comprehensive approach, trusted by top NFL players. Don't leave your financial success to chance. Connect with Chris on Instagram at OakbridgeWM_Anicetti. That's OakbridgeWM_ANICETE, and let Oakbridge Wealth Management guide you across the goal line.
First sheet again. Big opening. Pass 5. Pass 10. Vermont's a man. And he goes all the way to the 15-yard line. 17 yards out the territory.
Welcome back to the Believe in Badgers podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, presented by BetOnline.ag. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins. Today, we've got a special best of show from all of the different interviews we've had with the Badgers coaching staff over the past few months. Some of our favorite moments in here. And I really think if you guys haven't gone back and listened to any of them, maybe this will whet your appetite a little bit to go back and listen to some of the ones that maybe you haven't heard just yet. Before we get into some of these, though, I want to remind you that we are presented by BetOnline.ag, where they continue to be your number one source for all of your online sports wagering needs. You name it, they've got it over there at BetOnline.ag. Football season is just around the corner. Major League Baseball in full swing. Head on over to the website or use your app to sign up today and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit with our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. Bet online, where the game starts. We're going to start here with something from Coach Fickell back at Squat Fest with myself and Bernie. Coach Brady Collins was generous enough to invite us up to the proceedings, and we had an amazing time talking with Coach Fick. So here is Coach Fickell.
What are you super excited for this season?
Well, I think just to see how things all come together. And I mean that meaning like, how do guys really do things together? Because we had a meeting the other day and I'm saying like, look, I mean, if we're 80% aligned, if we are working at our 80% of our maximum capacity, like, I don't know what that's going to get us, right? But if you were a betting man, would you want to roll the dice at 80% or do you want to roll the dice at 100%? And that's where I'm challenging. I'm like, look, I want every guy in this room to be in their arrows pointed in the same direction. We all have a human element to us. We all have, selfish things that we need. But if we're going to do this and we're going to do it together, we all got to be pointing in the right direction. And if we can get that, it's going to give us a hell of a lot better opportunity and chance to do what it is we want to do, to play for a championship. If we don't, we're rolling the dice at 85%. So my big thing is, how good are we? How fast are we? Those things will figure themselves out. How well can we do things together when adversity strikes? Because that's what this day is really about. Sure. It's fun, the squats. Now this last 45 minutes to an hour is all about how do we create more adversity to see if you can continue to do things together. Who encourages the other guy? Mm-hmm. Do you think you could just do this all on your own and just kind of put your blinders up and say, I'm tough, I can do it? Like, no, that's not the way games of football are won. Mm-hmm. So to me, the greatest thing I want to be able to say is, how does this all come together? What happens when we actually get punched in the face? Maybe at halftime you're down. Maybe, who knows what it is. But how do we handle it, and how do we work together?
It's really exciting. Later. At least for me to see who those guys are, just standing, outside of reading the paper, you have Marty Strait down here. He's a 6th-year guy who's just getting people fired up. You see the entire team around Braylon getting him jacked up. You see him not doing 3 reps, saying, I'm going to do another one at an absurd amount of weight that I can't even add up. Who else has kind of taken over some of these, even if they're not guys who are going to play a lot? Like Marty's like, I just want to see the field, but if I don't, I want to be a leader here. That's special, and that to me is the Wisconsin culture. Are there any other guys kind of taking that role? We had Gio up here. It seems like he is.
Well, there's guys that have been here, and I think the Tanner Bordellinis and Jack Nelsons, those offensive line guys, Riley Mallman, Furton. I mean, those guys that are core at who we are and have been here for a long time. Those are the guys, but it's unique to see some of these new guys. And I don't always want to talk about the quarterback, but the reality is the quarterback is a multiplier, right? Whatever you've got as a quarterback, if he's a great leader and he's a great team guy, like he multiplies whatever his ability is and whatever the ability of the team is. And I'm happy. Like Tanner has walked in here, Mordecai has walked in here and just kind of embraced all things Wisconsin. I mean, the way he's done it, he's watched, he's observed. Me and him, we talk about this, like we're on the same path. Like there's amazing things that have been done here. There's amazing culture. Like we've got to recognize that together, embrace it. And he's done as good a job of that as I can say. And I know he's been through it, as he's been to a couple places where he's had to have this experience before. But he's a guy that you're like, wow. Some of these guys that have come in, the Will Paulings, who have just kind of embraced things and been an example, not caring where they come from, or what I did before. That's what I think is unique. The guys that have been here, they're great. Marty's, the offensive line in particular, Rodas, John, those. But I think it's always interesting when you bring in new people like me, like our coaches, and like Tanner and some of those guys. Well, how does that whole thing come together?
Right.
Do they really embrace all things Wisconsin?
And mix with the guys that have been here for 6
because what wins?
plus years. Yeah. Right.
Players win games, but teams win championships. That's going to kind of be the thing you're going to hear from us consistently this year. Like, we got enough players to win games, guys. Do we have a team to win a championship? That's all that we're fighting.
I'll tell you, from an outsider's perspective, the amount of guys you have is so exciting. It's not something we've seen in the past. We have guys coming from, 2 years out who are saying yes to Wisconsin and are excited about it. And you look at some of the boards, and Wisconsin's there. And that is not typical, and I think that's due to you and the coaching staff and Brady and days like this and embracing the alumni, which I think is special, and I appreciate it. So thank you for having us.
I told you, you've heard it. If there's anybody that I want to make proud, okay, not the fans, yes, the universe, but like former players to me are where it is. And just because of what it is that they've went through, what it is that they've done to give us this opportunity to be where we are. And so for those guys to accept an outsider, look at us, embrace us, recognize that we care not just about them, but about what it is that they've done and how they've done it, and want to grow what they've done and create and continue to build a legacy is what's really probably drives me as much as anything.
It's very exciting.
It's very exciting. Next, we're going to hear from defensive coordinator Mike Tressel. We had Tress back on the podcast. I want to say it was March or April, and we had a great time talking with him, the defensive coordinator, and really sort of getting down to the nuts and bolts of his coaching experience and also the new defense that the Badgers are installing in the 3-3-5.
Before we got on, Jordan Turner walks in to say goodbye before spring break. So that means that you have made an impact on these young individuals already. What's that been like to meet the guys first and to start talking to some of the defensive guys? And then what is you just said you're trying to look for dudes, but what's spring ball and how much does that mean to this team right now?
So first of all, yeah, not only Jordan Turner, but also Muma and Jake Chaney, all three of those guys were up here. I'd like to say just to say goodbye and give me a hug before spring break. I think that was part of it, but they were also wanting to turn on some film a little bit before they left, which, by the way, that's a really good sign that people want to do that. A, that they want to hang around with us up here in the office, but B, that they love ball. So that's really exciting. And one of the things I am really excited, what am I excited about this defense? One of the things I'm really excited about is the love of football and the football IQ that I feel like this group has. So we'll be able to do a lot of checks and adjustment and audibling and things like that on the football field based on formations or based on offense changing calls, things like that I haven't necessarily been able to do as much the last couple of years. So I'm really excited about the guys' ability to do that. They have to love the game and want to study to do it, and they're showing me that. But spring ball's critical because even when we're in personnel groupings that they've used before, we're not going to do things exactly the same. We have different coaches using different languages at times, and it needs to become their first language, right? They can't be out there playing next fall like they're playing in their second language. We need to get them so comfortable in this, it feels like this is what they've done their whole life. So it's absolutely critical. And that is in our dollar defense, which is brand new, but really everything's brand new because there's new people here.
It's also exciting because watching film to me is the mental aspect is the most important, but also the most time consuming, and student athletes and coaches like yourself have a ton of things to do. And I know when I was coming up, everyone said spring ball is the way you're going to get on the field. And my first spring practices, first of all, I knew no plays. I was getting killed. If you could believe it, coach, I was god awful when I showed up. We ran a wing tee. Like, I ran the ball. I never blocked a soul. So Coach White's like, come in every day, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we'll watch film. And we did it for months. And the second you get on the field, I just visually could do it. Like, I'm like, oh, this is what he means by this. This is what he means about who to block, landmarks, and all these things. So I love to see guys that are coming up and saying, like, Coach, can we sit down and just go over the mental part? Because to me, the physical, these dudes are you ever see Jordan Turner in real life? He's the nicest human, but a scary looking guy, musculature and everything else. We saw him in his pads, and he took pictures with my wife, who's 4'10", 4'11", if she is wearing stilts. But so, like, I love that these guys are doing that with you. Like, that makes me excited to hear.
So hold on. Let me jump in here. Let me jump in,
please.
So I got to say this: if you stunk at first, right, at least in your mind, yet your coach wanted you to come up every Tuesday and Thursday and watch film, that means you must have played really hard and you must have been a tough SOB, right? Because I will tell you that as coaches, at least from my perspective, man, if you give crazy amount of effort and attitude and you show toughness and passion, then I will go out of my way to spend as much time as humanly possible because I know it's in there, right? If the passion isn't there and the effort and attitude isn't there, then, you're probably not going to be drug up to the office for those extra times. So that tells me something about you. But where I'm going with this is that's what I feel with these guys. So, I mean, I'm loving that they're coming up all the time because, man, they've made me want to spend more and more time with them. And one thing I always tell some of my players, I heard Derek Jeter say once, I'm going to play so hard that my coach can't sleep at night if he doesn't play me. I'm a practice so hard that my coach can't sleep at night if he doesn't play me. So that's what I'm seeing out of some of these guys. And that's a beautiful thing.
No, it's a beautiful thing. Funny side story. When I was on the scout team, they put me in TJ Duckett's number 45, I think it was, at Michigan State. And I was talking about practicing hard. I was on the scout team getting the ball every play because I was 265 pounds and he was probably 250. I've never had more fun in a practice in my life. Now, the starting defense was not very happy because, in season, these guys don't want you to go full speed, but it was possibly one of my most memorable moments as a scout team.
That's awesome.
I call scrubiners. I was a scrubby, I was a scrub at this point. But yes, the passion in football were there. And obviously I'm 40 now. Passion has not gone away. I just don't put a helmet and shoulder pads on. I leave that up to the guys you're coaching to take those hits and deliver those hits. Coach, I know we only have a couple more minutes. One, how interesting is it going to be to go against the air raid offense in practice and then have to literally change a lot of things to go against some of the Big Ten teams?
Yeah, so there's no doubt that's one of the challenges, right? How are we going to practice to make sure that we are truly ready and going out there with the mindset of being physically dominant when we do go against the 12 personnel teams, when Iowa jumps into 12 or Minnesota jumps into 12 or whatever the case is, because Coach Longo will do that sometimes, but it's still a little bit of a different philosophy. So we're going to have to make sure we have ways to be prepared for that stuff. There's no doubt about it. I do think football still comes down to blocking and tackling, and even with the rules now, our physicality out there on the perimeter as they sling the ball around can make some differences. You better be able to create turnovers when teams are slinging it all over the place. You better be able to put confusion in the quarterback's mind when they're slinging the ball all over the place. But I do know this from what I've seen, even not in spring ball yet. We're going to give the ball to Braylon Allen. Don't think that air raid, that ball's going to be in the air all the time. We're going to hammer it. I can see that already.
Okay, next we've got Greg Scruggs. And Greg Scruggs was personally one of my favorite interviews that we have ever done. His story, his personality, his tenaciousness, everything about him is someone that I think anyone can relate to and anyone would want to run through a brick wall for. I think he is a special guy and has the potential to be a truly elite coach in college football or the NFL, wherever his path takes him. Here's a little bit with defensive line coach Greg Scruggs. Let's talk about that specific room, your specific room of guys, because you have a lot of veterans in there. You walk in, you've got Rodas, you've got James, you've got Tree, you've got, a lot of guys who've been in the program for a while and know what it means to be sort of in that tradition. Talk to us about the vibe in the room when you walk in and sort of how you run your meeting.
Yeah, the guys know, man, when I come in, I am who I am. I talk to you guys the same way that I talk to them, and I talk to them the same way I talk to you all. I try not to change who I am. I always try to be authentically me. I want to make sure that the guys have fun. So the vibes in my meeting, if you ever come to practice, right before we go out on the field, I crank up the volume on the speakers as loud as they go. And even before we go out there, if I'm just in the mood, I turn it up. And sometimes the first 3 minutes of the meeting are nothing but me reliving my college days and y'all listening to me lip sync these lyrics.
Oh, right? What are you listening to? I got to know what you're listening to.
Well, it depends. Let's see. The other day we had some, it was, I would say 2 weeks ago, it was island music. There's an artist out of Hawaii that I was listening to. It's kind of a specific reggae vibe. And then after that, it was Waka Flocka. One of the songs that I used to listen to when I pulled up the workouts in the morning. I told those guys I got to listen to the edited version because I can't take that stuff anymore, man. But when I was in college, I used to bang it. I had 212s in my trunk, man. I used to bang that thing. And then other days, it's country. Up here on the coach's floor, I was banging 90s rock before or last Tuesday. So it's kind of all over the place. But the
Coach,
one
does
thing
anyone know what 212s are anymore?
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
It's not a thing.
Shame. It is a damn
It's
thing.
a shame.
Did you get the Crutchfield catalog was just a gem every month when it showed up in my house.
Oh, no doubt. You're looking at all the cars and the way that it's laid out. And they got the glass case with the lights. Like, okay, all right, I can't afford that, but that's cool looking. I'm going to do that one day.
The system in my first car was worth more than the car itself.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah, I think mine was worth half of my first car. So
it's just so funny to hear somebody say 212s and like, I would say half the world doesn't even know what that is anymore. It's so sad.
No. The kids are like, you always talk about your 212s, coach. I'm like, because everybody had 212s and 210s in their truck when I was a kid. That's why. I'm not the outlier here. I'm just telling you what it was,
Yep.
But I try to keep the mood light. I think what's unique about our meetings is that we talk about football, but we also talk about life. And I make sure that I always take that time because if this is the time that I have with all of you, I want to make sure everybody gets the message. I'm not going to call up you one by one to talk about it unless there is something that's apparent. We had a conversation the other day about emotional intelligence, understanding your feelings, understanding others, being sympathetic and empathetic towards people, understanding trauma and how we deal with it. And what are we going to do to deal with it? And I make that relevant to football and being able to succeed despite whatever issue you may have going on outside of the field. Not to say that we don't acknowledge it, but understand how to acknowledge it and when to acknowledge it and who to acknowledge it with so that we can continue to be successful in football. But that's also a transferable skill to life because life will move on without you. So that's kind of the vibe right there. My room is a great room because of the leadership you talk about. They're all receptive to that type of information. I think young people yearn for that information. And then if you get a group of young men that are all sticking together, that all are on the same accord, it makes it easy to get that message to disseminate because if you are the outlier that doesn't want to hear it, you become the outlier. If you never acclimate or if you never adjust in, then you're just the outlier. And so having leadership in that room is great. Having guys who play some ball is really good. We obviously still have a long way to go. I just got done having my player meetings today, my one-on-ones with these guys. And talking about they all had to set out goals for me and write them down at the beginning of the spring. And every single one I came in and said, how do you think you did on your goals? And all I was looking for was honesty with those guys to tell me what they felt like they achieved, what they weren't honest with, what they could have been better at, this, that, and the third. Why? Because I think that they have to have a safe space to be able to say, I failed, and not have somebody chew them out. But understand that you get another opportunity, you get the grace to continue to grow. So if you said, I didn't quite achieve the goal that I wanted to achieve or the objective that I wanted to achieve this spring, cool, I got it. I appreciate that honesty. Now, what are we going to do to be better at it? And then as we continue to raise the standard, right, the room for error becomes minimal, which allows me as a coach to put a little bit more pressure on you because it's a standard that you set that I didn't have to. And you take ownership of it and you own it. So now I can be a little bit more of a stickler with things. And it all started off with you just acknowledging that I wasn't as good as I needed to be. I need to be better. I want to be better, setting the standard to get better, getting better. And then that window just gets smaller and smaller and finite. I was here at 6:55 and I told myself I'd be here at 6:50 every day. So at 6:53, I can get on you about being disciplined, so, it's good to have a room like that, man, that you can coach them up and you can teach them life and they yearn for it, man. It is, I could brag on those guys all day. Man, it's cool. All the guys too. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention my kids back at my previous institution, man, because those kids were no different. I've been blessed with some good group of men. And with the Jets, it was probably the same. Those some good dudes too.
We'll finish off the defensive side of the ball with Coach Matt Mitchell. Bernie couldn't make it that day, but luckily we had our friend David Foth able to hop up and pinch hit for Bernie in the last minute. And we had a great time talking with Coach Mitchell about not just defense, but special teams as well. He comes from the D2 level as a head coach. He has so much knowledge in the game of football, and he was an absolute delight to talk to. So here is myself, Dave Foth, and Coach Matt Mitchell. One of the questions that I want to ask you is, how is the position different from the 3-4 that they've run for the past decade? What are the most similar things about the way that you guys are utilizing outside linebackers, and what is the biggest transition?
Yeah, so I think, we definitely came in and, we wanted to try to, first of all, fit the scheme to the current players. And there was some returning, like I said, with CJ and some guys, like there's some returning experience at that position. So a lot of respect for the previous staff, both Coach Leonard, Coach April for that position. So we definitely blended some of the things that those outside linebackers did well within the scheme. And then clearly there's some things that Coach Tressel and Coach Fickell believe in they brought with them from previous stops that we're trying to blend in some of those things. So I think, the thing about the outside linebackers is, I would argue, I'm being selfish, it requires the most different skill sets of probably any position on the team. We have to be able to set edges in the run game. We've got to be effective in pass rush. We drop into coverage for some zone coverages. We drop and cover tight ends and tailbacks man, and then we run pressures. Sometimes we run pressures inside and we run pressures off the edge. So really trying to find kind of that, 5-tool player that can do all of those things efficiently. That requires a lot of different skills. Our skill set is a very diverse skill set, and you have to spend a lot of time honing those different skills and ultimately trying to, at the end of the spring, trying to put players in position where highlight some of the things that they're the best at. If we've got some guys that are elite pass rushers, then we need to try to find opportunities to get them to do that. And if they set great edges in the run game, try to put them to do that. But let's go through all the things. So it's a very diverse position. I think it had some diversity previously at Wisconsin. I think we've added to that. We've put a few more things on their plate, especially with, we're running a little bit of a 3-3 defense. And so that's a little bit new in terms of picking up where they fit into that and how they transition into that front and how we can jump back and forth and be multiple between a 3 down and also running what had been run here previously. And so we're spending time trying to hone those skills.
So can you, as a former player, not being too removed, I'm always curious about like how you guys conduct meetings and like what that internal, day-to-day operation type stuff it looks like for you. Because I know, we spend a lot of times in meetings and I think that's really where guys can show you and prove to you that they know what they're talking about and they have something to contribute. Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. I mean, so we're practicing currently Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, as you guys well know. And then Monday, Wednesday, Fridays are pretty heavy with lifts and a lot of meetings. I try to conduct meetings. Again, I've been coaching college football for 23 years, and I it's not me just lecturing. I mean, I'm pressing guys all the time. Even when a guy's not taking a rep, I'll ask another guy, what is alignment, assignment, his visual key, what are the things he's got to do? And so we try to create an edge and a sense of urgency in the meeting that kind of, I think, can reflect upon what it's like on the field a little bit too. And then, I think we do a great job with technology, trying to bounce back and forth with just the video and some and the visuals that we have, and just kind of bouncing back and forth and just trying to create a stimulus in that meeting room that provides growth, and guys are growing and continuing learning. So, at the same time too, I think those meetings, there has to be, there's 10 of us in the meetings. I have 9 players, myself. There's also got to be a sense of brotherhood. We're trying to establish that too. I think we have to have connection points that occur outside the meetings, and taking the guys to dinner and just trying to find those times too. You played where it's, not always super intense and it's crazy. Like, there also has to be some times where you bond a little bit, you just spend a little time. And I'm not in the locker room. I'm not a player, but at the same time, I do value the relationships I have with my players, and it's a coach athlete relationship. I'm not their friend. I'm not their buddy. I'm not the guy. But it can be a great relationship where I try to, mold them, help them grow. And again, I'm a little bit older. I've had a lot of experiences, and I think we take a look at our staff. We have a staff that is a veteran staff with a ton of experience. So we know how to, we've had a lot of experience with student athletes in terms of help them grow. And when you have a guy that's maybe struggling, a one-on-one conversation in the office, those type of things, you just have to navigate all those relationships. And what you're trying to do is get performance. And whether it's a collective meeting, an individual meeting, it's a walkthrough, you're trying to get the players to be their best. I tell them all the time, I kind of work for them. I'm their guy. It's trying to get them to be as good as they can possibly be for the short term for Wisconsin football, because I know winning is a big part of the experience. And you've been in winning locker rooms. It's hard to really replicate that anywhere else. And so I think they'll have a better experience the more games we win. And so that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is put a product on tape at the outside linebacker position that gets us to compete for championships and a standard of play. And so if I can get them to that, then they'll have a great experience. And sometimes those are tough conversations, but they have to happen. It's the truth. And that's the way I always approach things with the players. And I think at the end of the day, great players respect the truth. They don't want to be coddled. They don't want to be patted on the back and told false, because they can see through the stuff that's BS. And so I'm very direct and pretty straightforward. I think most great players appreciate that.
Sure. No, I can definitely resonate and identify with that. Getting into coaching myself, I think that's one of the main themes that is tried and true, right? Working for the players, but making sure that the standard is the standard, and there are going to be tough conversations, but to have that overall theme of, hey, we're trying to be the best team here. So you need to pull your weights, that always kind of centers everyone.
Attention athletes. Do you want a frictionless and tailored financial planning experience to secure your future? Well, look no further. Introducing Oak Bridge Wealth Management, the premier financial planning firm for professional athletes. Led by wealth manager Chris Anicetti, our team provides a unique and comprehensive approach, ensuring your financial success both on and off the field. We understand the unique challenges you face as a professional athlete, from managing cash flow habits to planning major business purchases and navigating complex contracts. That's why we've developed a proven process, working closely with our strategic partners to provide seamless solutions for your unique financial journey. Our services evolve with your career, offering short, mid, and long-term goal setting, portfolio optimization, real estate investments, and more. As you transition to life beyond the field, we support you with career development and philanthropic ventures. But don't just take our word for it. Top NFL players like Chase Roulier, Tyler Biadasz, Alec Ingold, and more trust Oak Bridge Wealth Management to guide them towards financial success. Troy Dye of the Minnesota Vikings says, I really love the work that Chris and the rest of the Oak Bridge group do. I especially like the honesty and transparency when it comes to setting up financial goals and plans that best fit my needs and situation. It's time to elevate your financial game plan. Connect with Chris on Instagram at OakBridgeWM_Anicetti. That's OakBridgeWM_ANICETE. And join the winning team. Okay, let's hop into the offensive side of the ball, and we are going to start with offensive coordinator Phil Longo. He was the first of the on-field coaching staff that we got to talk to back in March. And Coach Longo has been in the game for a long time. He's seen a lot, and he is a font of knowledge. I love getting to talk to him, pick his brain, and he's just one of the most affable guys. Like he's a coach's coach, and you gotta just love listening to him, his storytelling, his experience. I know you're gonna love this.
Speaking for myself as a fullback now with no neck, I think you're the most exciting hire outside of like Fickell and the entire, because you're going to bring something that we've never seen before. Every alumni that I've talked to is ecstatic about your hire. What does that mean? Like to come into Wisconsin as this brand, Barry built this unbelievable brand, and you're going to come and really put a stamp on something that's been very special to the whole entire state and the alumni across the nation.
Well, truthfully, I would tell you this. This is what I'm supposed to say, right? This is the coaching rhetoric I'm supposed to spew out here. But the truth is, sincerely, I am ecstatic about being in Wisconsin. And so many people have referred to the fact that my wife, Tanya, is from here. I met her one state over in Minnesota when she was the head basketball coach at Minnesota Duluth. And we are aware of what life is like here. It's not nearly as cold in Madison. It's beautiful here as it was in Duluth, Minnesota. But I am more honored to have the opportunity to be here. I'm excited about having the opportunity to be a part of so many great coaches that have been here and be a great part of a legacy of winning that exists here. And, one thing that is interesting to me about the University of Wisconsin is they have won over the years very consistently, but very quietly. And it's not a spotlight, hoopla, bells and whistles program. This is a meat and potatoes, physical, downhill, smack you in the mouth, tough guy program. And I have no desire to change that with what we do on offense. I simply, my goal is to continue to run the ball the way Wisconsin has always been able to successfully run the football. We'd like to add a passing game that's equally as explosive so that we are twice as difficult to defend. And I just want to do our part offensively to help, the other half of the football team and Coach Fickell compete to get to the Big Ten championship every year that we're here.
So I got to ask quickly, Coach, is there a fullback in this offense?
What's a fullback? I'm not sure.
No, that's the answer I like to hear. Not really, but
they do a lot of that stuff with our tight end. So I don't know. There's real.
Speaking of which, a good friend of ours, former Badger offensive lineman David Mormon, had to ask me to ask you, hippo package, barge package, like super heavy. Any chance we're going to see any of that again in Madison?
So if he watched goal line, short yardage, 4-minute, obvious run type situation, anything at Ole Miss, at Sam Houston State, at North Carolina, he'd see that. So I don't see that changing.
All right. Yeah, you mentioned Sam Houston State. You took over there. You took over for Willie Fritz at Sam Houston State. So you are very familiar, clearly, with changing the entire offense of a program overnight. What is sort of the biggest takeaway you took from that transition that you can apply here?
Well, that was a unique transition. One, Willie Fritz, outstanding football coach and ran the program in the right way. Kind of a tough-nosed, disciplined guy. I consider him to be very similar to Coach Fickell. Fick is extremely progressive also, and I think that it's one of the reasons that he wins. It's not like he won 1 year at Cincinnati. He has done this over the long haul, and he's done it at Ohio State, and he's never known anything but winning, all the way back to his years as a state heavyweight championship wrestler. I know he's going to love that I said that, but the guy competes, and he's got this very strong desire to win, as we all do. But I think that message gets translated to the team, and I think that's kind of how he lives his life, and the players, I think, respond. I think the coaches respond to that. My mentality is the same. And, so it's the transition of going from the triple option to the spread and the air raid that we went to at Sam Houston couldn't be more drastic, couldn't be further away on the spectrum. But you had the same care factor and the same passion and the same desire to win. And, and that's really what it's all about. I mean, at the end of the day, football is about blocking and tackling. And so maybe we're going to catch a few balls too, and that's no different here. But I think there's a lot more overlap here, than going into a system that's triple option that was so different at just about every position. And I truthfully think we have some really, really special skill players here that maybe you might not know are capable of doing quite what they may do this year, because I think that the offense will give them a platform to do more and show what it is they're truly capable of.
Coach, you mentioned, so in the air raid, I'm assuming one of the most important positions is quarterback, which in the past we really have seen maybe par play from our QBs. How amazing and how drastic is the quarterback room now from what it was 6 months ago, and how exciting is that for you?
Well, obviously, it's always been a system that is attractive offensive system to a quarterback or to receivers. But truthfully, as Braylon Allen and I'm thankful for it, has pointed out, it really does help running backs and tight ends as well. And this is a skill position offense, and it's driven by our quarterback from a decision-making standpoint. And they'll run the ball in this offense a little bit. They're obviously going to throw it. They need to be great distributors of the football. So, and I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I've always I felt like we're going to recruit quarterbacks who are athletically gifted enough to do all the things that we're going to ask them to do in the athletic realm on the football field. So we wouldn't recruit them if they couldn't run well enough. We wouldn't recruit them if they didn't have a strong enough arm. I wouldn't recruit them if they weren't accurate enough. And then off the field, it's harder to do the research on the mental side of it. Are they leaders? Are they good character guys? Are they obsessed with the game? And are they willing and able to learn the game mentally at a level where they can be elite once they get on the field? Because you can take great athletes and great passers who don't know the game well mentally, and you can make them average. And there are a lot more talented quarterbacks in the country than there are effective quarterbacks. And so you've got to find that unique blend of a guy that can do it both on the field and prepare for it off the field. So the guys that we brought in and the guys that we have in the room right now, that's what we're trying to decide. Do they have all the athletic tools? And if I do my job, we'll be able to train some of them so that when they get to the field on Saturday, it's about making consistently good decisions. It's hard if you have 80 plays in a game to make 80 really, really good, consistent, successful decisions. It's hard to do anything in life 80 times. I don't know about you, but I'm going to look off and get distracted. You know what I mean? After 10 reps, it's hard for a human being to do something at an elite level 80 times in a row. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're quarterbacks to do. So that's really my job Monday to Friday, is to train them to do that. And so they fall back on that on Saturday because it has to be instinctive. Mm-hmm. And then they already have the talent, or we wouldn't recruit them here to do it. So that's the process with Qs. I'm excited about our room. And I think hopefully the fans will be also.
Next up is offensive line coach Jack Bicknell. Coach Bicknell joined me, Bernie, and David Mormon. We had to bring an OL onto the podcast for our conversation with Coach Bicknell because, we love the big uglies here at Wisconsin, and one of our favorites is Demo, so we had to bring him in onto the conversation. Coach Bicknell, another guy who's seen a lot of football. He was on the field for Doug Flutie's famous Hail Mary at Boston College. And he's been in the game for a long time, coached some amazing offensive lines, and he was just a wealth of information and another great guy to talk to. You've been in the game since '86 as a coach. What's the biggest change you've seen to the sport of college football on the field, and the biggest change you've seen off the field in those 36, 37 years?
You know what? I would say that on the field, nothing's changed. I mean, really. I mean, you might I'm not in a 4-point stance anymore. The center's on it. So you have subtle things like that. And I guess things have changed. I was watching my old film, which you really shouldn't do because you're much worse than what you have in your mind right now. But I forget. I think it was the Alabama game. But I realized I did nothing but just turn back. Like I just snapped the ball like on pass protection. And I would just turn my shoulder and, if the guy came in my A gap, I blocked him. If he went backside, I didn't worry about it. But so things like that obviously have changed. But as far as being around the players in the locker room and the lessons that you learn from this game and the strain and all those things haven't changed a bit. Everything outside of that has changed like you can't even recognize it. My dad's 85 now, and I'll talk about NIL or, transfer portal, and he just can't even fathom what I'm talking about. He said, I'm just too old. I don't even want to hear it. So it's certainly been a challenge. It's, the social media, that stuff is terrible in so many ways, not in the sense that the positives, obviously there's some real positives to it, but you got to be careful about these kids getting too caught up in the negative part of it. There's obviously some great positives, where it's really helped the game. Let's face it, this is about the fans. I wouldn't even have a job if it wasn't for fans. So social media and all those things is fantastic. But when it's guys like yourself that are professionals, that's one thing. And that's what I'm used to. Back in the day, those were the only people commenting on what was going on. Now it's everybody, and in that sense, you have to be careful. These players can get upset about things, and it's hard to describe that. Look, that guy wouldn't have the guts to do what you're doing right now anyway. So don't worry about him. But so, there's so many things that have changed. But the thing that I love is the game has not changed. The players have not changed. I'm telling you, they're not any less tough. They're not any less great people. They're just it's the same thing on the field for sure.
But you bring up the NIL, which is very interesting. I would have been a trillionaire by now.
Right.
I would have made $15 probably. But is this something like, do all the coaches get involved in this? Is this only the side for so you're not involved in any NIL talks?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I don't even think in the state of Wisconsin, I don't even know if you can be, if you're a coach. I think just the collective has to handle that. Right.
Yeah. I even like I said, now I've been a few places, obviously, and this thing just came up like 2 years ago or something. I never even talked about it more than 2 years ago, but we have absolutely nothing to do with it. Thank goodness, because I don't know who makes what. I don't know how that happens. I have no idea about anything, and neither do any of the other coaches, And so, and I think there's a lot of schools just, feeling their way through this thing also, and there's some schools that are much different situation than others, you know what I mean? And so the nice thing is I don't have to deal with it, but let's face it, in recruiting it comes up, and so it's been something that has changed the game. I think they're going to rein it back. There's a lot of, nobody knows what's going on with the whole thing. I don't think, there's a lot of rumors out there, this and that, but it's it's, thank goodness, as coaches, we don't have one thing. I don't even have to think about it or deal with it, because that being able to just coach the O-line, that's the nice thing that when you talk about all the differences, there's a lot of differences that you have to deal with. But you know what? Just being able to get in that room with those guys, that hasn't changed one bit. The locker room hasn't changed. I don't know if Dave would agree or Bernie, you'd agree, but I feel like, through the years, it's the same thing. And that's why I coach, because I just couldn't get away from the locker room and the camaraderie, and the people that are involved with the game of football are the people I want to be around. They really are. And so none of that stuff has changed.
And Coach, I think Bernie and I talk about all the time, like we'll have different people come on the show and tell their stories of their experience at Wisconsin. And like we laugh because virtually it's almost everyone has had a similar experience, because it's a special place, special locker room. We all have gone through very similar things. Those grinder, 30 period practices, hot in the sun, camp. Like we've all been through it. And then we all have fun afterwards. And it brings me to my question, like Madison, right? Awesome city. I'm not sure if you had time to kind of check it out yet, but I know as an O-lineman, like outside of football, our favorite thing to do is eat. And there's some great restaurants. Have you been to any place that is like stuck out to you since you've made the move?
Well, I'll tell you what, like you said, we don't have as much time as you think. It is. That's the one that talk about another thing that changed. There is no off season anymore. The off season is worse than the season now for a coach. It really is. I got to get to the season so we can slow down. It's just the way it is. I mean, we've got recruits every single weekend, and so I want to get out there and I want to experience it. And then, to be honest, if I do get some time, I usually go see my grandkids or whatever. So, but I went to Johnny's Italian Steakhouse. I like that over there in Middleton. I probably haven't been, I've probably been over Middleton area, Biagio's or whatever that is. And then, but one thing in Madison, for sure, Rare Steakhouse was amazing. I thought that was fantastic. And I couldn't forget my man Sal at Naples 15.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
that was the guy. He's he's unbelievable.
He's unbelievable. I love that dude. And I feel like I know, Matt was talking about being from the Northeast. You feel like Italian food. And that is legit Italian food. And it's so much fun to go in there. You might have to have a hard time getting out of there, but I've been meaning to leave for like 2 hours and I'm still there. But no, it really is. It's a special place. I like I said, I'm not just saying this because I'm on the Zoom or anything, but I've been in so many different situations. I've never been around a group of young men more dedicated, more hardworking, more, and I don't want to say anything, but not getting in trouble, knowing me, something, but I mean, I go to the academic meetings. We just had one this morning. It's the most boring thing ever. That used to be extremely exciting because you don't want the head coach. He gets mad if your guys are screwing up, so I'd always call the guy right before. What do I got to worry about? Here, it's like they have not said one thing yet. I mean, not one guy yet. I mean, it's like, you got to be kidding me. And it's the same thing. I mean, we go to meetings, they're there 10 minutes early. I'm like, guys, I mean, we don't start till 7:15. Doesn't matter. They're at 7:05. So I've been going 10 minutes early and we get started 10 minutes early. But I mean, I beg them not to come early. But so it's real. That part of it's been amazing to me. And I think, like you're saying, Dave, it's just something about this place. I think Wisconsin, the University of Wisconsin, first of all, it's a good academic school to begin with. So you're not going to be able to get in here unless you, have something good about you. But somehow it just attracts people that are just great people. Maybe it's the Midwest. I don't know. I haven't been in the Midwest as much as other places. Or are we the upper Midwest? I don't even know. We probably are, right? Is that what we consider ourselves?
Yeah, I'd say
upper Midwest. Yeah. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, the UP of Michigan, which no one really wants to claim, but they do begrudgingly. Hey, I'm just talking about the UP. You're from the Mitten. You don't get to. I mean, do you really want the UP anyway?
Yeah, we want it in the summertime.
Oh, it's true. In the summertime. In the
For the
summertime.
1 month of the summer.
Next up, we have probably Bernie's favorite interview with Devon Spalding, the running backs coach. Obviously, Bernie, a former running back. I just let him go. It was so much fun to just watch him and Coach Spalding really get into it, talking running backs, talking the Badgers running game. Coach Spalding has so much energy, young guy, and he is just excited. And I can see why. They've got some great backs in the room this year that he's going to get to work with. And I think the future is really bright for the Badgers at the running back position under Coach Spalding.
Do you want to just give us like just only positives of the dudes that are in the room? Like what? I mean, I feel like I could guess what some of the guys in the room could do, but do you want to give us like Braylon, A gap to A gap is phenomenal, or just give us some positives about all the guys in the room?
Braylon's got a really good feel for gap scheme right now, and he's starting to develop his outside zone feel. Obviously, that's more of a field play. He does a phenomenal job for me in pass protection. That's the area that he's grown the most since I've been here, and I love that. We take a lot of pride in pass protection in my room. Ches has one of the most natural feels for inside zone that I've seen since I've been playing the game of football and being on the other side coaching football. He's very natural at that. Cade Yakimelli, he's very dangerous in open space. He's got the most. So we chart open space wins in my room, right? Because in order to be able to be a successful running back, you got to be able to make people miss. And in the front of the room, we got the open space wins, and Yakimelli's winning by like 6 or 7, which is absurd. So he's dangerous in open field. Jackson Acker is, I'm sorry, I said his name wrong. Jackson Aker is he was a fullback, right? And he made the transition into becoming a running back. And I've never seen somebody be able to transition with such ease. He's a very good athlete. He's very tough. He's very physical. Obviously, he's going to be great in pass protection, but his ability to move between tackles with the ball in his hands is very surprising. And then Grover Bortolotti, his nickname is PB. PB stands for Pitbull. He goes out there and he plays his ass off, man. I mean, he told my guys yesterday, he goes, I'm going to tell you what, I hope I don't get one carry in the spring game. I just want to pass protect every play.
That's a bad dude who wants to do. That's not somebody you want to mess with.
And he's the smallest guy in the room, but he walks around and he plays like he's the biggest. And I love him. And I love working with him. He's taken leaps and strides and bounds from where we started, man. And he's fun to work with. And then Zach Glaubman, another guy that was a fullback who made the transition to running back. And he might lead the country in spring ball rushing yards all over the country. I'm not joking. When he's in the game, he finds a way to move the football, man. But no, these guys, they're really fun to coach. They all have different characters and personalities, and it meshes really well. You know, the culture inside the running back room is phenomenal. Everybody wants to see everybody do well. And like I said, man, before, I'm really blessed to be in the position that I'm in.
We talk about these guys every single day. It's like they're my brothers already. And I think I met Braylon one time. It's really exciting. So, Coach, I got a question. I'm brand new. Like, I'm coming in. What are some of the things you preach that you need RBs to be able to do so they can play for you?
So the first thing is ball security, right? You got to be able to take care of the football. The second thing is you got to be able to protect the quarterback, right? We take a lot of pride in pass protection, and, pass protection technique, it's a little complex, but the moral of the story is don't let that guy touch the quarterback. You got to take pride in being a pass protector. It's a mindset, right? And then just your ability to play to your strengths. If you're a big guy, I want you to play with physicality. If you're an elusive guy, I want you to be able to make people miss, right? But we all have to be able to catch the football. We all have to be able to take care of the football. We all have to be able to protect the quarterback. And then, like I said, man, play to your strengths.
So in some of the scheme, the running scheme, what are some of the key points that these guys have to make? Is it getting movement? Is it getting guys running? Is it getting up on the lineman's heels? Like, these are all things I grew up with. So yeah. I'm really interested in kind of the spread, the maybe some difference, maybe it's the same.
So, I have a very, very different approach with running backs. I played the position, and I was coached by a guy that kind of took the same approach that I'm taking. And, the approach is you don't want robots in your room, right? Because no one run play is going to be identical to the one that we ran before, even though it's the same exact run called. Mm-hmm. So we work on a lot of different reactionary drills, right? Because you're going to have a read key inside of every single run play. And then after your read key, you got to be able to read what your offensive linemen are doing once your read key declares, and you have to be able to react. So all of our drills are reactionary based. Each run play is obviously going to have a different aiming point. Each run play is going to have a different read key. Each run play is going to have a different tempo. The footwork can vary. The footwork can stay the same depending on what you want to do and how you want to operate. But being able to understand the differences inside of those run plays and run schemes and aiming points and read keys will get you to where you want to go. But being able to react after what you see is going to get you to where you want to be. So those are just things that are, obviously it's simply said and a lot more difficult to accomplish and do, which is why we practice it, right? Which is why you have the drills that you have.
That's a Coach White, my coach, used to say, don't be a robot all the time.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah. I love what you're saying. I think for people who are listening, that sounds like a lot, right? Like read keys, all these other things, second. It sounds like a lot, but dudes like Braylon Allen and Ches and like all these other guys, it becomes like a feel, right? That's what separates some of these dudes who are fantastic, is that they have their keys, they have their reads, their landmarks, and they follow them. But then they just kind of trust their instinct.
Exactly. That's the whole point of being a running back, right? But just like everything, it just takes repetition. The more reps you get, the more comfortable you start to get, and the better you're going to be able to play.
So, Coach, what's been, I think you said OTAs, but spring OTA is an NFL thing, right?
No, we do
Is
OTAs too. We do OTAs
okay.
too. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was just called spring ball, I guess, back in the
you get
day.
OTAs and then you get spring ball after OTAs.
Got it. So there's some things that are different.
Yeah.
There are some things that are changing that I don't even understand. But I'm sure you probably don't either. But some of this NIL stuff is bananas. But we don't have to get into that. We're not getting into that because that's a whole other conversation. Yeah, you're welcome. I don't want to get into. I believe I should have been paid a lot more than I was, which was zero.
We're going to finish off here with Coach Nate Letton. Coach Letton is the tight ends coach, and his journey to Wisconsin has already had, a bit of an interesting spin. He didn't even come to Wisconsin first as a position coach. He was actually just brought on as an analyst first. But after Coach Gino took the offensive coordinator position over at Notre Dame, he hopped right up into the tight ends coach, what he had been doing at Cincinnati last year. And he's just got a great attitude. He seems like a classic Badger. He seems like a guy who would have played at Wisconsin as well. We love talking with Coach Letton. Just great guy, great attitude, and think you'll enjoy it as well.
Nate, what's it been like to be working with Coach Phil Longo, who I think is a genius when it comes to, he'll never say that, but like really what he's done in college football in the offense is special. I'm thrilled and like excited to see what the product is on the field. But like, what's it like for you to be be working in collaboration with him?
Oh, I'll tell you what's a funny short story, but I just finished my first year of coaching college football at Center College. I was transitioning from being the receivers coach to now the tight ends coach. Our offensive coordinator there, a guy named Tony Joe White, is a Texas native. And our head coach gave us a little bit of professional development money for us to go travel around on spring break and visit with some folks. And one of those places was Sam Houston State. They had this offense coordinator guy named Phil Longo who's setting the world on fire. There was some miscommunication on our end about what day we were going to be there. We were a day early, and they're in the middle of spring ball. And the dude met with us for like 10 hours straight. It was unbelievable. He had no idea we were going to be there. So I think that just kind of speaks to the type of guy he is. He's a football junkie. He's a really, easy guy to get along with. And, really there's no, the thing I like about Phil so much and what I appreciate about him so much is like, the only thing he wants to do is win. You know what I mean? So there's very little, ulterior motive. There's no ego. It's like, hey, here's the offense we're running. How can we make it better? Who do we need to put in the right positions and who gives us the best chance to win? So, that's why, it's been great. I don't want to sing his praises too much in case he sees this. Okay. But, it's been a lot of fun. And for him to, the way I got here was a little bit unique, coming on initially and then off the field capacity and then, Gino leaving and he didn't know me that well. He was incredibly supportive and me kind of moving into that role and something I'm really deeply appreciative for.
That's so cool. So, sorry, Matt, did you have a question? Because I got like
I asked all the questions in the first half. Now it's you here now, buddy.
Coach, you're in first off, I think the tight end position at Wisconsin is extremely special. I think you've had historically like big dudes who block, guys who can actually get out and still catch footballs, but big monsters. Like Sigmund comes to mind. This is before my time,
right?
And Martinelli, and you had some other guys, but then you got Tony Pisciotti, who I played with. But then you got guys like Owen Daniels and Travis Beckham. You're talking about like the tight end position at Wisconsin is really, to me, it's revolutionized kind of everything we've ever been able to do. How cool is it to coach that room? But you're also coaching half the guys who have run the Super Bowl are tight ends from Wisconsin. It's kind of bananas. What's it like to be in your 30s and coaching that room, but like just coaching that room at Wisconsin?
Yeah, I mean, it's never lost on me the privilege I have, and I like to think I work hard and do a good job, but I mean, there's a tremendous amount of luck that comes into this business too, right? I'm not naive enough to not believe that, but to be a place just from a program standpoint like Wisconsin with such an unbelievable history of not only playing at the highest level, but to do it the right way, right? And I think we all kind of know what we're talking about on that front. Like, Wisconsin has been the model of consistency and excellence for a long, long time and doing it a particular way. And that's something I think when you talk about the tight end position, kind of the least specialized group, right? Kind of, you have to almost embody that, I'll do whatever it takes. So if we got to run the ball 50 times, I'll block 50 times. If I got to catch the football 50 times, I'll do that too. You know what I mean? Whatever it takes. And I love, kind of that mentality that and that tradition within that room. And I think we got a bunch of guys in there right now that, in 10 years, we're going to be talking about them the same way, which I think is really, really neat and really special. And like I said, I hate to – sometimes I feel like when I get on these things and I just say I'm so grateful, it's like, oh, my God, you sound like sad. But really, that's how I feel. It really does, like, it feels so – I hate the word surreal, but it does feel surreal. And I feel incredibly, like I said, privileged. And it's something that we have to work tremendously hard to make sure that we honor it the right way.
Listen, I love the way that the whole coaching staff has answered that question to me in the best way possible. I mean, it is surreal. Like, right. Like coming in, you're coaching at the University of Wisconsin, which, I mean, maybe for Matt and I, it's the best place in the world.
It's the best place in the world for me too, man.
I know, but like, I just love it. Like, I'm going back. My wife's from there. Like, I want my daughter to go there. I'm already emailing admissions. She's 2. So like, it's just so nice to see that the coaching staff has like really just embraced, right. Bought in. That's what we always say, and embraced like this culture. And I think you guys are only just going to polish it up and make it even better. It's just so cool to me.
Well, I appreciate that. We hope so. We're working hard to make, all Badger fans and folks that love this place, really proud. So.
All right. Thanks so much for tuning in to our best of episode here on Believe in Badgers, presented by betonline.ag and Oakbridge Wealth Management and our buddy Chris Anicetti. We'll be back with another interview here in the next couple days. So make sure that you are subscribing wherever you get podcasts, like, rate, review, whatever it is you need to do to help spread the word about Believe in Badgers. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate everyone who's been watching on YouTube, supporting and sharing. Subscribe to the Instagram, just subscribe to the Twitter at Believe in Badgers on both. And until next time, on Wisconsin.